We have finally reached the final chapter of the Aeneid, Book 12. There are quite a few things that have happened in this chapter. Turnus is ultimately killed by Aeneas, and there becomes a time when Aeneas contemplates sparing Turnus's life, but when he sees Pallas's sword belt, his whole idea changes and his whole viewpoint, and he goes in and plunges and kills Aeneas. And it has been argued that this may be a very unheroic action on his part. However, it was one that was inevitable. After the endless battles of all of the preceding books, there has to be some kind of end. There has to be some kind of epitome that the reader can take. And as we look at this last video, there are a couple of critics that have had different their own viewpoints on it. The first is William S. Anderson. And he said, while Aeneas's killing of Turnus is simply a human tragedy, Aeneas cannot win a victory whether he saves Turnus or deserves it as a suppliant and a man of honor or kills him. So regardless, Aeneas must go forward. Aeneas must be the one that was to found this Rome. And it was ultimately at the cost of Turnus's life. He said that Virgil parallels the foundation of Rome. Rome was morally compromised. The welcome Augustan peace was accompanied by doubtful means of restoring order. So there were a lot of mixed emotions about this. Was all of this a ploy, if we're looking at that theme of Augustan peace, to keep an Augustus's order? He also says that Virgil's ambiguity is a vehicle for conveying his complex vision of Rome. So that all of that to say that the whole reason for Virgil writing such was a bow at the plan of Augustus. Another critic is Michael Putnam, and says that the Aeneid is a grandly imaginative reinforcement of Augustan ideology and power structures. He says that Aeneas kills Turnus because it is good and right for the Roman forces to triumph. And many would probably agree with that, because we've said over and over, it is inevitable. This is something that must happen. However, was it done at the sacrifice of Aeneas being that ideological archetypal Greek hero? He says that although he has been told by Anchises that the city his children will found will spare the defeated, Aeneas chooses instead to let his desire for revenge run unchecked at the sight of Pallas's belt. Uh, uh, Draws him down from his statesmanlike hesitation to the dirty world of practical politics. So that's something that you, as the reader, can basically decide for yourself. Was this something ugly that Aeneas took on his own? Did he, when the duel came finally about, this showdown that we've been waiting for, was it something that could have been avoided? He also says that Turnus's death therefore foretells not peace, but war and an end to liberty, while Aeneas's failure shows that he has not brought the perfection of Olympus down to the mortal plane. So there are many viewpoints, many schools of thought as to whether was this the grand ending that the reader was anticipating. And that's something you can ask yourself. Is the final scene anticlimatic? We do not get the wedding scene between Lavidia and Aeneas. When does Aeneas get to enjoy everything that he struggled for? Why focus on Turnus's body and resentful soul? And that's something that, it is up to each reader to decide for him or herself whether he or she thinks that this was satisfying as an overall book. To me, it is reminiscent of the unsatisfaction that the reader gets at the end of the Iliad. Many readers want closure. What is the end of the Trojan War? However, that's not what the book is about. The book was about Achilles' anger. And in the same way here, this book is not about the rest of the story for Aeneas and his people. It is you go back and look at the first lines, I sing of war and of a man at arms in war. And that is the story of Aeneas. The overall organization, Book 1, Aeneas prays for help in despair. Book 12, Turnus prays for help, and he is in despair. Book 1, Juno is burning with rage and desire for revenge. In Book 12, Aeneas is filled with rage and revenge. So is there progress that has been made? Was the progress made for Augustus's overall message? Did Virgil succeed in delivering that type of propaganda or subliminal message that he was trying to get across to the people of Rome of that time? The meaning of the Aeneid can be thought as is Turnus is constantly incapacitated by fury, which is associated with Juno and other violent characters. And Aeneas's victory can be seen as the triumph of order over chaos and the irrational. In the end, Aeneas is the one possessed with fury, and his ability to exercise rational order no longer existed. Is this a tale of rewarded suffering? Aeneas pays terribly for his obedience to the will of the gods. He is ultimately given a kingdom and a home, but does he do it at the expense of being that Greek hero? And then Turnus pays terribly for fighting for a just cause and ultimately dies. Again, this was something that was larger than himself. It was out of his control, him being under the influence of Juno, but it seems a terrible means to an end. So, as this book comes to an end, is the overall tone of the story one of optimism or pessimism? That is something that can definitely be explored in an essay or a research paper in your own mind. Virgil forces the reader to consider the options and decide for oneself.